We all know that gender inequalities are everywhere, and the intensity varies from community to community. So that means that even our interventions should be contextualized. We shouldn't be planning on a blanket manner. When I was young, in my community, every other time gender-based violence was the order of the day. And somehow it appeared like it was a normalized practice, like it was okay for it anyway to happen, and no one was bothered about it. And as time went by, I got to learn that culture was actually blamed because of all these practices. And at one point when I was, I think, around 8 years old, we had a neighbor who had 2 wives, and every other time the man could beat one of the wives, the first wife. So one time they had to organize for a village meeting, and the chairperson was the one sharing the meeting. What caught my attention at that little age is that the wife was asked, the first wife, the victim or the survivor, was asked only one question, and that question was, do you come from a polygamous family or a monogamous family? And the lady responded by saying, I come from a polygamous family. My mother has 2 co-wives. And that marked the end of the meeting. So the lady was reminded to be cooperative with the co-wife and just take good care of the husband. So I felt bad at that little age. So as I finished my education, I was fortunate to work with International Rescue Committee under the women's program. And that's where I came face to face with gender-based violence in the communities. But what what caught my attention towards my last years with the International Rescue Committee, we had a donor visit, and we went to the field. There was a small activity prepared. So after this small skit was about early marriage, the one elder stood up and called my name. I was the one translating to the donors. So he called my name and said, Lomuria. I don't know, as in, what is this that you're telling visitors? It happens in our community. He said, early marriage does not happen in our community. It's not part of our culture. If it happens, it is a crime, and someone is punished heavily. So it's good when you're trying to educate the people. Kindly, if you're talking about culture, try to understand it and stick to it. But don't pick every negative, any wrong acts that happen, and it's like normalized, and try to attach it to the culture. He felt challenged, and he said, for us elders, we are in transition. So if this is the generation we are leaving behind to judge the culture actually every other time, then he's afraid. So that's the time I had a shift in my thoughts, and I became intentional on understanding my culture. What are these practices that exist in my culture that protect and empower women in Karamoja? I'll keep referring to Karamoja because that's where I have experience, and I'm conversant with the culture there. So that again made me with a friend to form a Karamoja Cultural Association as a platform to promote the positive cultural practices, and also try to foster unity among the Ateker cluster. The Ateker cluster is Uganda, the Karamojong in Uganda, the Turkana, the West Pokot, South Sudan, and Ethiopia. And we have we share a lot in common. So every year we celebrate our cultural identity, and all these groups come to participate. So again, this is where now I want us to have a reflection. So even in the language, we speak one language. There are so many things that we share together. So, and also mechanisms in dealing with challenges, they are similar. Like during migration, which mechanisms do we put in place? There is something that is called etamam, and that it is practiced by the Turkana and also with the Karamojong in Karamoja. So I don't want us to dwell so much on the negative side of the culture. We all know that there are those negative practices, but the more we talk about them, the more we propagate them, the more we are trying to nurture even the young community to get well acquainted with the negative practices. What if we make a shift from that negative conversation to that positive conversation? Like in Karamoja, when I joined my current employer, Karamoja Development Forum, I interested myself more to learn how the culture operates. And the common narrative about women, I know Roslyn talked about land rights generally, women land rights. But in Karamoja, the common narrative about women with land rights, it's women do not have land rights and women do not own land. But just to put it clear, no one owns land in Karamoja because the land tenure system is customary and largely land is on communal, right? So the elders only help to manage land in trust of the future generation. So when a woman gets married, the husband will be given part of the land, and this land, part of it is the homestead, and the biggest chunk is the garden. And who is responsible of this garden? It's the woman. You'll never get the garden named after the man. So you always hear this land is for the mother of Lomuria. I mean, this garden is for the mother of Lomuria. And this woman has all exclusive rights over this land. Even when in an event they divorce, the land will be managed by the children. So the woman will go back to her family. Then again, ownership of cows. The same woman, when she's married, she's given a cow. This cow is to ensure that she has an asset and also has milk, and she takes good care of the family. These are the small practices that are not pronounced anywhere, yet these are the opportunities we can tap into and see how best can we work with the elders to propagate all these positive cultural practices that protect and empower women. The other one is about Akiriket. We have Akiriket is the court of elders. It's the highest authority structure in Karamoja, and it's also a place of worship. At times it's referred as a shrine and also parliament because they make decisions in this platform. Unfortunately, women are not allowed to participate in this platform. They have smaller roles that they play and they exit the place. But there is an existing space, platform for the women. It's also called Akiriket for the women. So the women congregate in this space, they discuss their issues, and the person who shares this meeting is the wife of the eldest man in the clan or in the village. So the woman assumes those responsibilities and the leadership. So later they have also established the communication mechanisms on how the information in this Akiriket of the women flows to the highest decision-making structure. It's all like established. But we tend to focus more on why shouldn't women be in the court of elders. Neglecting this space that has been created for the women, how can we tap into this space to ensure that we capture this space and propel to other spaces? We build the capacities of women in this space to ensure that they're articulating their issues right, and also strengthen the communication channels that have been established. So this is also the gap that is existing. So once we recognize that the traditional system is there and is strong, it has governed the indigenous communities since time immemorial, and people are grounded on these traditional systems. It's difficult to break them. So every other time we try to confront the traditional systems, we try to fight with the traditional systems, it gets frustrating for both of us and also the communities. And when you look at the communities along the border areas, most of them do not know these national laws, the policies and all that. They are governed by their own traditional systems, and they coexist and they are interdependent on each other. I can give an example of the Turkana and the Karamojong. I don't think the pastoralists along the belt know about the international laws of land, the international laws of gender and all that. But they dwell so much on the already existing traditional practices, norms, and they have been governed by them. Even when we are born, we get exposed to these family norms, family rules, and these rules usually are derived from the traditional mechanisms before we get exposed to these national and international mechanisms. So as I wind up with my speech, I would like to say the formal system or the governments and the development partners, we could focus more on aligning quality social services that increase the resilience of communities along the border areas.
And a few of those services that I've pointed out are the financial support to increase to support their informal businesses, education, health, watch services, sanitary facilities for women, access to information, and also markets and protection of the communities. So if we could focus more our energy on strengthening these services and ensure that the communities get quality services to strengthen their resilience, I think that will be a bonus to all of us. The other one is also, like I mentioned it in the beginning, contextualizing our policies and aligning them to the positive traditional system for strengthening these positive practices and also for effective implementation. Like I said, once we fight the traditional system, it will be frustrating for both of us. IGAD has an opportunity since we work in the 7 countries. I've said we because we are all here. I don't work for IGAD. In the 7 countries. And there are already established clusters. I think 3 clusters, Karamoja, Mandera, and the other one. So this is an opportunity to shift the policy as per these clusters. What are these common traditional practices that we can pick up and try to formulate policies to support these communities? Then the other one, I call upon the Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development in all these countries to interest, and also the development partners, to interest ourselves in documenting all the positive cultural practices and try to that empower and protect women. Again, we are careful when we say gender, there are also women here, there are men in the picture, so we don't forget. And since we know that women are vulnerable, so that's why we're trying to document the positive cultural practices so that we don't lose them. These practices are not documented anywhere. They live with the elders in their memories. Once they exit, they go with the practices. So there is a likelihood or a risk of us losing all these practices, yet we could tap into them and see how we can flow with our communities. So that's one, and so that we can propagate them and see how we can tailor them to the policy framework. Lastly, again, there should be a point of convergence of the traditional mechanisms and the formal system. So where is that meeting point? If we are parallel, then we are working in isolation, right? So we must write our stories right for appropriate interventions. I beg to submit. Thank you so much.